Now, let's go back over here to our numbers. Okay? To answer the same question, but to do it numerically, we'd have to have not just the demand curve and marginal revenue, we'd have to have marginal cost. So let me just give you some hypothetical marginal cost information. Okay? Let's say the marginal cost of producing the first unit is $1. Marginal cost of producing the second is 2. Third is 3. Fourth is 4. Fifth is 5. Okay? Now just forget this for a while. Looking at this information, how does he decide which quantity to produce? Well, he looks at each unit and says, is it worthwhile to produce you? Is it in my interest to produce that first unit? Well, he wants to produce every unit that has a marginal revenue greater than or equal to its marginal cost. So he looks at the first unit and says, well, if I produce you, I can charge a price of 7. That adds 7 to my revenue, only 1 to my cost. Is it worthwhile to produce that unit? Yeah, it's going to add $6 to his profit or reduce his loss by 6 if he's going to lose money. Looks at the second unit. Is it worthwhile to produce you? Well, if I produce you, in order to sell this unit, I have to cut my price to 6. So I'll be selling for $6 per unit. The extra revenue I get from selling that second unit is 5. Okay? But the extra cost of producing that unit is only 2. Since I'll bring in more revenue from that unit than cost, it's worthwhile to produce that unit if I'm going to produce anything. Okay? And so he says, yes, I'm going to produce the first unit, I'm going to produce the second unit, third unit. In order to sell it, he's going to have to cut his price on all the units from 6 to 5. As a result, even though he's selling at a price of 5, that third unit brings in only $3 of extra revenue. And the cost of producing that third unit is $3. Okay? So the marginal revenue of that unit is equal to the marginal cost of producing that unit. Our conclusion is yes, this is the last unit he wants to produce. Now, if you're thinking, well, but that last unit adds the same amount to revenue as to cost, so he's not really making a profit on that last unit, that's true. Right? He's indifferent. The very last unit where MR and MC are equal, he's really indifferent between producing that very last unit and not producing. Okay? Our assumption, our convention is to say if he's indifferent, he'll go ahead and produce it. Okay? It doesn't really matter. Okay? The important thing is that every unit prior to that one did add to his profit. Okay? And every unit beyond this one is going to decrease his profit. He looks at the fourth unit and says, well, if I want to, I can sell 4 units if I want to. Okay? But I'll have to cut my price to $4 per unit. If I do that, my revenue still goes up. Okay? My revenue goes up by $1, but my costs go up by $4. Do you want to spend $4 to produce a unit that's going to raise your revenue by only $1? Is that going to add to your profit? No. And so he'd say, no, not going to produce that. Other fifth unit would be even more disastrous. Okay? So you're going to stop at 3 where marginal revenue and marginal cost are exactly equal. Okay? Numerically, what we've done here is simply work through the logic of why this is the decision rule as to how much to produce. You produce every unit that adds more to revenue, more or at least as much to revenue as it adds to cost. And once you get to that point, you don't keep going because that would start to reduce your profit. Okay? graph here is giving you exactly the same information. Okay. Question here.
Why wouldn't you raise the price to meet the demand? Because if you keep it that price, demand's gonna be higher than the quantity that you supply.
Okay, are you looking at this point? Or are you saying, instead of doing this, why doesn't he raise the price? Well, he can raise the price. Notice he can raise the price if he wants to. But if he raises the price from $5 to $6, what happens? He doesn't sell as much. He can only sell 2. Okay? And as a result, his actually, well, again, for this very last one, MR and MC are equal. He doesn't really care whether he produces that one or not. Okay? But if he cuts back by more than 1, he would be giving up sales where he would be giving up units that were adding more to his revenue than to his costs.
So some people wouldn't want to buy it because the price is too high.
That's right. I mean, think about the implications of the demand schedule here. That you got some people who are willing to pay a high price, but most people aren't. The lower the price, the more units you're going to be able to sell. Notice the firm does not charge the highest price they can possibly sell or charge. He could charge a price of $7 and still sell something, okay? But that wouldn't give him maximum profit. Sometimes people will say, producers, they just charge the highest price they can charge. If they do that, they're stupid. Because their goal is to make maximum profit. And you see here, you get maximum profit not by charging the highest possible price, but by charging the price that will bring you to where MR and MC are equal. Okay? Firms also did not try to maximize their sales. Somebody might say, well, they should cut their price and they could sell more. The goal is not to sell more. The goal is not to maximize sales. The goal is to maximize profit. And how do you do that? You produce where MR and MC are equal. Okay? And you have to calculate margin revenue from the demand curve. Okay? Other questions here? Okay, I'll give you an example to work through. Assume demand curve looks like that. We know marginal revenue is going to start out right up here. Going to cut the axis, the midpoint between this point and this point. So looks something like that. No, there's going to be a marginal revenue curve, marginal cost curve. It will look like our typical marginal cost, declines at first and then increases. We know every firm has an average variable cost curve. Remember what we know about average variable. We know it declines at first. Where does it hit a minimum? At the intersection of marginal cost, or with marginal cost, and then it starts to increase. And every firm is going to have an average total cost curve as well. And exactly where that's going to be will vary from firm to firm. I'm going to draw this in such a way that a TC looks something like this. It's above the other curves. Wouldn't always be the case, but here it is. And the question that you will be asked is, what is this firm going to do? There are a number of decisions that have to be made, and they're very easy if you approach them the right way. If you start at the wrong point, you forget it. Okay, you're lost. What do we say is the first thing you have to figure out? We want to know what price is he going to charge, how much is he going to produce, is he going to produce at all? Okay. But the way to answer that is you have to first figure out if he's going to produce, how much is he going to produce? And you always find that where what is equal to what?
MR equals MC.
MR equals MC. Okay, there's so many questions where the answer is just MR equals MC. So even though that looks really complicated, you say, where's the marginal revenue curve? It's here. Where's the marginal cost curve? It's here. Where do they intersect? Right there. Okay. Now that you've got that point, next thing you do, you read down to the axis. And that is Q star. That is the quantity that he will produce if he wants to make maximum profit. Let's say that's 500 units. Okay. Next question, what price is he going to charge? Okay. He'd like to charge $1 million per unit. Okay. But nobody will buy from him if he does that. Okay? So the price he can charge is limited by the demand curve. You know he wants to produce 500 units, so the question is, what's the highest price he can charge and still sell 500 units? And how do you find the answer to that question?
The intersection between MC and D. MI and MC.
MC and D intersect over here. Okay.
Just read up.
All you see, once you find that point, just erase everything else. Okay? The only thing that matters is what you find on that vertical line. Okay? So you say, I know he's going to produce 500. I know he's going to charge the highest price he can charge and still sell 500 units. Well, what tells me about the relationship between price and quantity? The demand curve. So for this quantity, you read vertically up to the demand curve. You then read over, and that gives you P star. That gives you the price he will charge that will give him the highest possible profit. Okay? Let's say the price is $10 per unit. If I say, well, no, he ought to charge he ought to charge a higher price so he'll make more profit, what would you say? No. If he raises his price, yeah, he can do that. But if he charges a higher price, he won't sell as much. And he won't be able to sell the profit maximizing quantity, and he won't make as much profit. So he does not want to charge the highest possible price. He does not want to maximize his sales. He wants to produce for marginal revenue plus marginal cost. You find that point, you read down to the axis, you then read up to the demand curve, you read over to the vertical axis. That tells you the price he's going to charge. So now we know if he's going to produce, he's going to charge $10 per unit, and he's going to sell 500 units. Okay? That leaves the question, is he going to produce at all? Should he produce? Should he shut down temporarily? Should he go out of business? Is he making any profit? Profit, remember, can be written as quantity times price minus ATC. That is really important to remember. This is per unit profit. This is the number of units. If price is below ATC, then that means he's losing money. Use the information you're given. You know he's going to produce this much. I told you only the information on that dotted line is relevant. If he's producing 500 units, where do we find his average total cost? You go up to the average total cost curve. Okay? So it's going to be right here. You read over. Clearly, average total cost is going to be something higher than the price. Okay? Let's say it's $14. Okay? So is he making any profit? No, he's losing money. His loss is going to be the difference between price and ATC, so it's that gap, multiplied by the number of units. Okay? So this area here represents the loss that he is incurring. He's losing $4 per unit. He's selling 500 units. He's going to lose $2,000 if he produces. So can we then say, well, he's going to go out of business? No, we go back to what we said about price takers. This decision is the same as before. He's losing money. He's going to say, if this is going to be permanent, if I'm going to lose money from now on, I'll just go out of business now. If he says, I think this is not permanent, I think things are going to get better, okay? Then he says, I don't want to go out of business, okay? Then his options are, am I going to produce and lose money, or am I going to shut down temporarily? And to answer that question, what does he look at? He looks at price and average variable. If the unprofitable conditions are temporary, okay, he says, I'm going to produce this much, my price is going to be here, what's my average variable cost of producing this quantity? Again, you read up the dotted line to here, which tells you his average variable cost is something below his price. Let's say $7. So we would say, since his price is above ABC, he's not going to shut down temporarily. He's going to keep producing, even though he's losing money. It's in his interest to keep producing because he won't lose as much by producing as he would if he were as he would if he shut down. If he shut down. Okay. There are a number of steps in that analysis. Each step is not hard. If you don't do them in the right order, you can forget it. Okay. You just got to remember, find the point of intersection, read down, draw the magic dotted line.
How would you know if he completely out of business again?
In this situation, if he looks at this, he says, I'm losing money. If I keep producing, I'm going to lose money. If he says, you know, I think next year and the year after and conditions are not going to get any better. This is permanently going to be unprofitable. Then he says, I'm going to go out of business. Well, he would have to assess his market. I mean, that's not an easy thing to determine. No, that's a whole different course. No, you would be told that he thinks this is temporary or he thinks this is permanent. Okay. Questions here?
Find the marginal cost.
How would we find the marginal cost? You mean, well, here you're given the marginal cost.
There it will be always given.
Potentially, you could be given the total cost curve or total cost schedule and has to calculate marginal cost. Okay, but you remember what marginal cost is? Change in total cost over the change in quantity. Okay, you definitely want to understand how to calculate that. Okay, because if you don't know how to calculate it, then you're probably not going to be able to use it correctly. Okay. All right. Next time we will. This is price searchers where you have low entry barriers. Next time we're going to ask, what if you have high entry barriers? What if it's very difficult for other firms to come in and start competing? Okay? Then you get, with monopoly, you get an outcome that looks similar to this. Oligopoly, you get a even more interesting outcome. So we will continue with this next time.